Supremacy is a really hard word or area to talk about in the workplace because it is so vilified, it's so uncomfortable, especially in polite Canada, really uncomfortable. When I say the word supremacy, what is the thought or word or image that pops into your head? Yes? KKK. What else? Pardon me?
One way, my way.
One way, my way. What else?
I'm better than you.
I'm better than you? Yep. So a lot of us initially, when I say supremacy, it's, we have hoods. A lot of us picture hoods, the KKK, actual people marching in rallies, Nazi symbols, etc. How many of you thought that when I said supremacy? Throw up your hands. Okay, when your brain goes to people in white hoods, what is that called? It's called bias. That's bias. Okay, so we talk a lot about bias. This is a really good example of bias. What is bias? You'll know from your organizational training, bias are mental shortcuts our brains take in decision making. Like when I say lawyer, first image that pops into our head. When I say parent, first image that pops into our head. When I say CEO, first image that pops in your head. I say supremacy, first image that pops in your head. That's all bias. Mental shortcuts going to the first thing we've internalized about meaning, message attached to that word. The problem in our society is that when we think supremacy, most of us go to KKK, white hoods, which is not wrong because the KKK are a manifestation of the ideology of supremacy, but the problem is, as long as we're thinking KKK, we're not going to be talking about this at work, right? Because who's going to talk about the KKK at work? Like, no, thank you. It's like not appropriate, not like no. So we don't go there, and because language and concepts and frameworks matter, it leads to an action. So after today, I'm going to teach you the more accurate, fulsome definition of supremacy so that you have it. Am I fussed about whether you take this back to your workplaces and start screaming supremacy in boardrooms? No, I don't think you need to do this. But what I do think is that you need to hold the concept, to have the concept there with you. So, and I'm going to make it very simple for you. Supremacy is simply the ideology. It's an ideology, okay? It's a way of thinking, a philosophical underpinning that is rooted in how we think and live and feel and behave and lead, but also permeates our systems, is the ideology that one group of people are better than another group of people. It's very simple. Supremacy is the ideology that one group of people are better than another group of people. And supremacy then shows up in a number of cultural identities. So when I say to you, let's look at gender supremacy, in our society, which group or which identity, which group within gender has supremacy in Canadian culture, who would you say that group is? Men. Men have gender supremacy over women and people from the trans community. When I say racial supremacy, which group of people have supremacy over others? So, white people. In our society, white people have racial supremacy over people of color and people from Indigenous communities. When I say supremacy connected to sexual orientation, which group in our society has supremacy over others? Yeah, so it's people who are straight, cisgender, would have privilege or would have supremacy over people from the LGBTQ communities. And in fact, as you'll see on this chart here, supremacy makes its way, permeates multiple layers of identity. And in fact, take a moment and pause and look at this chart because it's actually a really powerful visual representation of how it is that supremacy permeates identity. And as you're looking at this chart, what I want you to be doing for a moment is not only taking it in from a macro level, what does this look like for Canadian society and systems and the workplace, but also be looking at it from the perspective of where do you have supremacy? And recognize as well that supremacy is a really interesting beast because every single one of us in this room will belong to a group that has supremacy, that in this moment you sit here as someone who has supremacy, but you also sit here as someone who probably doesn't have supremacy, that we all both have it and don't have it, tied back to cultural identity. And in fact, one of the most powerful things that you can do after today is be in a place where you understand where you have that supremacy, where you hold it, and where you don't. The other thing I'll mention really quickly, because when I am teaching about this and in the workplace, what I have found is with leaders in particular, leaders have a lot more supremacy than others, especially because of intersections being the overlap of multiple identities that come together to impact your experience, that there's a lot of guilt attached to supremacy. It's the, I didn't choose to be this way. I didn't choose to have this happen. I don't choose to be in a place where I have the higher up over others, and it feels really crappy for me, and I have a lot of guilt attached to it. And I can tell you based on my work, as in my actual D&I work, but my own personal self-work in reconciling guilt within me, because I have supremacy in some of these buckets now as well, and did at birth, that the best disruption for guilt tied back to supremacy is action. It's action. Action is the antidote to guilt tied to supremacy. It's that if you feel like crap because you feel like you have stuff and privileges and benefits, capital that you did not earn, that were given to you just because of the color of your skin or your gender identity or your education, your class, or whatever, the antidote is using the capital, the benefits, the advantages that you have to disrupt the negative experiences of others. It's a very powerful experience. Now, so that's supremacy. It's the root ideology. It's the fundamental macro thing that's going on in society. From that, power and privilege flow. Now, power is defined, but power, privilege, highly interconnected, but power is macro, privilege is more micro. Power is defined as the capital, both earned capital, actual capital, or social capital. So capital, whether it's actual or socially created, that we gain or that we enjoy because of supremacy. And when I'm talking about capital, I'm talking about access to education, access to healthcare, access to employment, access to justice. So that's societally. But when we take a look at power in the workplace, how it shows up as is things like your ability to go and knock on the door of your leader's office and go in for a chat. It's your ability to knock on your leader's door, to go in for a social chat and ask your leader for a favor, to connect you with someone in their network. It's your ability to knock on your leader's door to ask for an introduction to someone in their network and say, while I'm here, can you help me look for other opportunities internally? Can you help me access more leadership roles? Can you help me access better work? Can you help me access higher comp? That's power. Capital within an organization. Privilege is defined as the benefits that we gain, that we enjoy by virtue of supremacy, our membership in groups that have supremacy. So, privilege, by the way, I just got asked this. I was presenting to a law firm last week in the US, and I used the word privilege, and someone said to me, uncomfortable with the concept, I earned my privilege. So, let's talk about earned and unearned. When we talk about privilege, we're really looking at it from an unearned perspective, although some argue, well, I earned my privilege, and I understand where that comes from. For example, we grew up in a household where my parents were immigrants, and when they first came to the country, they were working class and eventually became middle class. And so I was born into a working class, lower middle class family, but I stand here now before you as someone who has class supremacy. So one could argue, like, oh, Ritu earned her privilege. She earned her class privilege, and I worked really hard for it. Let me tell you, I worked really effing hard for this outfit. So I worked really hard for it, really did. However, my earned privilege is on the backbone of unearned privilege, because my parents still were middle class and still could afford to pay for my education, whereas there are others who did not have that privilege. So a lot of our earned privilege is on the backbone of unearned privilege. Our focus, though, is on the benefits that we gain. from membership in these groups that have supremacy. In society, we hear of privilege, and it looks like things like if you don't have to worry about what you wear to an airport or what you wear on a plane, that would be privilege. If you don't worry about being stopped by the police, that's privilege. If you don't worry about going into a Starbucks and sitting at a table waiting for a friend to join you for a coffee and worrying that you'll be arrested for waiting, that's privilege. That's in society. But let's talk about what privilege looks like in the workplace. Privilege looks like, tied back to supremacy, if you don't worry about what you wear in the morning, or if you don't worry about how to do your hair, should I straighten it, should I cut it, should I wear it natural? If you don't worry about altering your voice, altering your accent, altering what you share as it relates to your personal life, altering the words you use to speak, altering what details you volunteer to people about your religious identity, your cultural identity, your sexual orientation, your gender identity, and so much more, that's privilege. That's privilege.